name's Ketevan. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. I have been MIA for a bit, and that is what happens when you pre-record a bunch of videos with all the best intentions and then forget to put the SD card in your bag. Oops. So the vacation happened without any YouTube videos going up. That's fine. It was still a great vacation. I bought a lot of books. Let's talk about them. So first I'm going to talk about the books I got in Stockholm, Helsinki, and Tallin. That was the first sort of half of the trip. And yeah, so let's just get right into it. The first one is going to be so silly, or not silly, but like I could have never guessed that this would have been picked up on this trip. It's a very old Penguin paperback of The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie by Muriel. I'd never even heard of Muriel, and so when I was in this random thrift store in Stockholm and there was like a little book section, I was like, okay, I'll look at the books, and of course they were like, of course, mostly in Swedish, but then I was like, oh, there's like one or two English books, like I'll look at them, and I looked at this and I was like, oh, okay, and you know, and then I actually, you know, whenever I'm out looking for books, I always scan it with the Goodreads app to just sort of check the reviews and see who I know might have read it or liked it or didn't like it or whatever. And I saw that quite a few people liked it. I think the best review is probably from Elena Reads, I want to say, and that kind of convinced me like, oh, it's worth it. And I actually got it for 50 cents. The lady was so nice. It was like a 3 for €5, I think, or something. It was some sort of deal, but and she was like, oh, you can get 2 more. And I was like, oh, there aren't any other in English. Sorry, like I'm not gonna get random Swedish books. And she was like, oh, okay, and she just gave me a cheaper price. I was like, oh, that's so nice, you know? So yeah, I was really happy to have found this one. I've already read it, loved it. Very excited to possibly read it for book club because I think it's a really good feminist book. It's basically about a school teacher in Scotland who is this fabulous person in the prime of her life, and she essentially gets fired because one of her students kind of tattles on her and gets her fired on purpose, and it's sort of like, it's sort of a mystery, but it's not that it's like who done it, because she never finds out. But anyway, very good, loved it. This one was kind of the only one that I would consider a true whim purchase. I was in this bookstore in Stockholm, I think, yeah, in Stockholm, and there were just so many wonderful Charco Press, Fitzcarraldo, like these amazing, you know, they knew what they were doing. We were vibing. And so I just was like, I need to pick up another short story collection of Latin American women writers. I was reading one at the time, and I was like, you know what? I need to just always have one in my back pocket. And so I picked this up. Fresh Dirt from the Grave by Giovanna Rivero, translated by Isabel Addy, or Ade, maybe. So yeah, I mean, just like, you know, typical, I think this is it Argentinian or it's Bolivian, I believe. She's Bolivian. And so it's just like the standard, like, you know, magical realism, wacky stories that like are really interesting. Love it. Looking forward to reading this possibly this month for Women in Translation. We'll see. So that was Stockholm. So as you might have seen, I didn't get any Swedish literature in Sweden, and that's because it was very hard to find. Everything was sold out. I'll actually pull this one up first. This is something I had gone to Sweden intending to buy because I've already read it. I borrowed it from the library, and I loved it so much that I wanted a copy for myself. It's Osebol by Marit Kapla. Who's it translated by, actually? Peter Graves from the Swedish, and it's so fantastic. It's narrative poetry. I have been really loving this genre so much, and it's about all these people from a very small town. There's only 40 people left living in this town. It used to be a logging town, and it's all poetry, but it's like not poetry. It's basically what they're saying to her in these interviews that she's recorded, and then she formats it as poetry, and the rhythm is amazing. It feels like poetry even though nothing's rhyming, and it's just a fascinating look into small town culture and just like who these people are and sort of like the history of Sweden, because they've got a little bit of everyone even in this tiny town. It's very, very interesting. So it's huge. It's very thick. I think it's over 800 pages, but you know, it's poetry, so it's very easy to flip through it very quickly. So anyway, I did not find this in Sweden. I found this in Finland, along with another Swedish book. I believe you say Kallocain by Karin Boye. She's also a Swedish author, and this is considered, it's a dystopian novel written quite a long time ago, almost 100 years ago, and it's considered halfway between Brave New World and 1984. So I'm really intrigued because I did enjoy both of those novels, and this is obviously written by a woman, so it's just a really interesting like twist. It's very short. I think it's less than 200 pages, and I'm really looking forward to this. It was written like pre-World War II, I believe, so or maybe during World War II actually. So yeah, it's just like I'm very interested in this one, and I can't wait to read this probably this month, I'm guessing. And then we took the ferry down to Tallin in Estonia, and I got 2 Estonian books. The first one, I went to the bookstore and I said, give me some recommendations. And she said, do you like historical fiction? Do you like fantasy? And I was like, no. And she was like, I still think you should read this book. And I was like, okay. And so this is kind of like a beloved book in Estonia. Apparently, like almost everyone's read it. Everyone loves it. It's kind of like the Harry Potter. It's more new. It's not as old. So like maybe not as many adults have read it, but like everyone like loves this. It's basically the story of sort of like an ancient civilization, but like in Estonia, when humans lived alongside like another proto-human. These humans are sort of like, you know, beginning agriculture and not industrialization, I don't think. I think it's just agriculture. Yeah, they're transitioning to agriculture, and then this boy is part of a group of people who is not wanting to do that. They want to stay in the forest, live their lives, and they speak Snakish, which is like the animal language that they can communicate with animals. And so it seemed like a wacky story. And she was like, actually, I'm not sure how good the English translation is. Like all the praise on this book, there's like 3 different like, you know, little promo quotes from French literary magazines or newspapers or whatever. And she said the French translation is apparently amazing. And she's not sure about the English translation. So we'll see how that goes. But I got convinced basically by the bookseller that this was worth it, even though it's totally outside my normal genre, because it's different enough. We'll see. Oh, I just realized I didn't actually say the names of this book. The Man Who Spoke Snakish by Andrus Kivirähk, if that's correct. And the translation is done by Christopher Mosley. So hopefully, Christopher, you did a good job because I really want to enjoy this one. Alrighty, and then so after that book was purchased, I was like, oh good, I'm done. I checked off my list. I got an Estonian book. I'm good to go. Because my goal up until this point was 1 book per, you know, location. This is where it all went downhill. So I went to another bookstore and found this, and I just like could not leave it in the bookstore. Like I had to have this. It's called The Misadventures of the New Satan by Anton Tammsaare, translated by Olga Shartzy and Christopher Mosley. Oh, same guy. Okay, we'll see. So this is the cover. I absolutely cannot wait to get into this. The whole book is basically starting out between God and Satan, like deciding, you know, what they're going to do with this planet. Like, oh, you know. And so Satan is like in trouble because God is like, you know what? It's actually so hard for humans to be good enough to get into heaven. I'm thinking of just scrapping the whole thing, like getting rid of everyone, getting rid of everything. No more humans to decide whether or not they get into heaven or hell, because they're basically all going to go to hell because it's just too hard to be a human and be good enough to get into heaven. And so if that happens, then God will also destroy hell or make hell like, you know, a moot point because there's no one to go to hell if there's no one left. And so Satan is like, oh, no, it's fine. I can prove to you that humans can be good. And if they can be good, then that means you shouldn't scrap the project and that you should let me keep hell. So he lives as an Estonian farmer during this like very brief history of Estonian history where they were actually free. And this was sort of like a political commentary. This was written like 100 years ago during this like, you know, period where it was like a commentary and like, hey, it's actually hard to survive. Like, can we get a little help here? And he's living as this farmer trying to prove that it's easy enough for humans to be good enough to get into heaven, but he himself, Satan, is doing this. So it's just like the premise is hilarious. And I really am so curious, you know, to see what happens here. Like, I'm guessing he'll will he fail? Because he's Satan. How can he be so good? I don't know. I'm just loving it. Anyway, so that's the last book of this little like wrap up haul. I was really happy with all the books I purchased on this first half of the trip, and I had a lot of fun on the vacation, so it was really, really good. I might do another video of all the books I read on this vacation, because there was quite a few, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. I read 14 books in 16 days. It was a reading trip for sure. So let me know if you want to see that video, because they're very random books. They weren't all like, you know, themed or whatever. The next video will be about all the books that I got in Latvia, and then the next will be in Lithuania. But until then, I really would love to hear any recommendations you might have for Estonian women writers or books, because I got two, you know, from two male writers from Estonia, and I don't have any female writers. So I still want to, you know, get some recommendations. If you have any, please share them down below. And until next time, bye!